Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Twilight Show with your host, Michelle. Joining me tonight are two very experienced classroom practitioners who will bear all to talk about what teaching is truly like behind and beyond the chalkboard. How hard do teachers work? What is our working day like? And when does our day really end?
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Welcome again, everyone, to the Twilight Show. It is indeed a pleasure, as usual, to be here with you on a Wednesday night so that we can talk about all things related to education. Of course, we have a particular theme that we follow, and tonight we will be looking at life beyond the classroom, beyond the chalkboard. What do we really get up to? What is it like being a teacher? So that is our discussion tonight, and I've got two fabulous guests who will be joining us and will be sharing their experience as teachers. So we do look forward to that discussion. But before that, I always like to start with a little bit of a reflection before we get into the discussion. And I always like to reflect on the previous show and to see what other people are thinking. And very often, the people who listen to the podcast or join live, they will send me a little reflection on their thoughts based on their observations of the discussion. So I'm just going to reflect on that a little bit. And a friend of mine who listened to the podcast, and she told me that she listened to it in its entirety. So thank you, Mel, and well done for doing that. And the topic last week, we looked at optional subjects, and their impact on your overall development and growth as individuals. We also looked at attitudes towards optional subjects. And so my guests and I, we talked about that. And I think the bottom line was that optional subjects aren't necessarily given the same amount of credit as, say, for example, or core subjects. So Mel, who was giving me her feedback, she said that her experience in the secondary school was that, number one, her parents encouraged her to focus on the more academic subjects. And so she followed that route. And today she's wondering, what would life have been like if she had followed the more artistic route or the performing arts route? She's saying, would she be better off rather than how she is now as a secretary? But I'm sure Mel has no regrets, because from what I know, she's still very artistic and she still uses it to her advantage. So thanks for that again, Mel. And that's what I encourage listeners to do, and people who are listening later on. Just share your feedback. It's very valuable and I appreciate it. So those of you who've already joined me live, I would like to welcome you to the show. Listen, you are welcome to make a comment. You could call in, share your thoughts as well, because tonight we are going behind the scenes to talk about what is it truly like to be a teacher. And Before we go any further, let me just remind everyone to download the Podbean app, to call or send us your questions or comments. We aim to inspire and spark a discussion. So before I proceed and welcome tonight's guests, we're going to take a short break and listen to some of our supporters. Do stay tuned. It promises to be an electrifying night, whether you can relate to it or you'll be made aware of what exactly it's like being a teacher. Stay tuned.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
Teachers, mark your calendars for Bet UK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, Bet has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
Thank you so much. And just some activities there for you to tune in and perhaps visit the bookshops and get some of those edubooks as well. We've got my first guest online. I'll introduce her shortly, and then we will hear from her. My apologies for the interruptions earlier. You know, with technology, it's like working with kids or animals. You never know. But I do apologize for that very brief interruption during the adverts. Not to worry, you'll be hearing the adverts again, so you won't miss out. So I'm just going to pause and welcome my first guest. I've got two amazing guests tonight, two gorgeous women as well. And so I have the pleasure to welcome the first of our two guests. We've got Mrs. Denise Kaisamba. Now, Denise has been a humanities teacher for 3 decades, and I can assure you, if you see her, you would not believe that she's been in the classroom for so long. She is still very youthful. Now, she has exemplified effective and meticulous pedagogy, and if you speak to her colleagues, they will tell you that she has high expectations, and her students are expected to do their very best. She does not accept mediocrity. She's a stickler for discipline as well, and is driven by her passion for successful teaching and learning outcomes. She's a proud mom of 2 sons and wife to a husband who's also in education. So, welcome, Denise, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you so much. And let me welcome the second of our guests. And this is another exceptional and talented educator, Mrs. Eunice Owusu-Taylor. Now, Eunice has a wealth of experience in the arts and design sector, which started when she worked as a furniture and graphic designer before entering the classroom. With over 19 years of experience in the classroom, she has worked as head of department, coach, mentor, classroom practitioner, you name it. Today, she's a lead practitioner for design technology and engineering, where she continues to influence and inspire fellow colleagues and students to embrace the field of design and engineering. She is also a proud mom of two sons and a doting wife. And might I add, it's often so good to see women in these professions as well, or these subject areas rather, which are predominantly dominated by our male colleagues. So it's really good that we've got people like Eunice who is leaning in and taking a seat at the table, so to speak. So, welcome, Eunice. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm sure you'll be with us soon. We will continue the show until you join us, and we look forward to hearing from you. So, remember, everyone, to call in or send us a message by downloading the Podbean app. We would love to hear from you, whether you're a teacher or not. We would love to hear your perspectives. So, Denise, welcome. We're about to begin the questions. So, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to unmute so we can engage in this discussion. But before we begin, I always like to do a brief overview. And there's a commonly held belief that those who can't teach. A term I must tell you, everybody who's listening, I do not like. I really don't appreciate it because I consider myself and my colleagues to be experts at our craft. And that is why we do such a good job of it. Now, some people also believe that our workday ends at 3:15 or 4 o'clock, that we have weekends all to ourselves, and that the long summer holidays are spent traversing the globe, enjoying ourselves. Tonight, however, we will reveal the truth behind the scenes. We will let those of you who are not teachers into our reality, and teachers listening, let us know if you can relate to tonight's discussion. And if you're listening and you're the partner of a teacher, tell us your thoughts as well, because I'm sure your minds have changed if you harbored such thoughts in the first place. So, Denise, if you could unmute for us, and we will begin the show. Eunice, if you said you're online, if you wish, you could say something, say hi, so I know you're there, and then we'll also ask you some of these questions. So, Denise, hi.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, welcome, because I know it's busy times. Like myself, we had parents' evening tonight and then just had a couple hours in between. So it's so good to have you on the show tonight, Denise, and to hear your voice. So we're going to the first question. What inspired you to become a teacher, and how has your journey evolved since? So take your time and tell us all.
Hello, everyone. It is really lovely to be here. I had lots of technical difficulties, so my 13-year-old had to support me, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But so for me, growing up in Jamaica, in rural Jamaica, I have always wanted to be a teacher from a very young age. And Michelle would share this with me because when I was younger, at about maybe 7+ years, I actually used to teach the plants in my garden. And so that was my classroom. So I always wanted to teach. And it would be my primary classroom. I would be teaching them their alphabets. I'll be teaching the plants how to count. I'll be telling them off, giving them strict instructions, and saying, I was going to ring home and complain to their parents if they're not working hard, etc. So that's how I started to teach. That's how I fell in love with teaching. So for me, it's like a vocation, I would say. I've always wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So yes, Denise, poor plants back in the day,
I
huh?
know.
Yeah, we definitely let them have it. So would you say there was anybody around you at the time who also perhaps influenced you to want to become a teacher as well?
So we had maybe primary school teachers. There were one or two people. Um, I suppose I could mention, but there's just this always love for learning. So maybe even my dad, who has since passed. but there's always this love for learning. And
Yes.
so,
Hang on a second, Denise. Let me just welcome Eunice. You're online live.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi. Welcome, welcome. Sorry about the
Finally,
technical difficulties.
that's
So,
absolutely
Eunice,
fine.
I'm just catching up with Denise, and then if you could mute, and I will come back to you in a second,
Will
please.
do. Thank you.
Yes. So, Denise, could you continue, please?
yes, so the Jamaican
You mentioned your dad.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jamaican education system is based on the English one, but it is more traditional, I suppose. And so we learn to read from the age of 3 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
from 3 years on, like we're reading the national newspaper, and or reading age, evolved really,
Mm-hmm.
really quickly. And so that love for learning, I suppose, was inspired by my dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then the second part of the question before I hand over to Eunice, how has your journey evolved since then?
Well, to be honest, I started off, as I said, being a primary school teacher in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
but did not follow that at all. So I have just went straight into secondary teaching
Mm-hmm.
because I find that I could not have taught lower years at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can relate, Denise. I can relate. There comes a point as well that even in the secondary system, after a while, year 7, 8, and 9 is a bit of a struggle
It's
when
a
you've
bit of
been.
a struggle.
So it's a bit of a struggle when you've been in it for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Eunice. I'm going to ask you the same question, and I'm so happy you're online. What inspired you to become a teacher? Because I know you started off in another industry, and how has your journey evolved since then?
Hello, Michelle. It's great to be on the show today. Yeah, so quite interestingly, I never actually planned to become a teacher. I wouldn't say it was by accident, but it was never in sort of the grand scheme of things or the, part of a plan, any plan.
Mm-hmm.
But what it was I think there was at the time, there was a shortage obviously for teachers and particularly in my field. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought, maybe this might be something I'd be interested in. Obviously they're offering a bursary at the time. So I thought, well,
Yeah.
let's give this a go. But something, I've never regretted it because actually, though I went into the creative field, my real passion was actually law. But anyway, that didn't go that way. So when I decided to go onto the teacher training program, and then I actually started to really fall in love with it. I didn't think I would like teaching, but I'm glad that I did. And although I'd always had a belief in, sort of that idea of transformative power of
Mm-hmm.
education, because I was a product of that. You go to school, you get your GCSEs, you get your A levels, all these things. So that belief has always been there, as I said, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to be part of that, journey for others. But over the years, my teaching has evolved, and sort of focusing purely on subject matter, which is, in my area, it's a massive area. It's multidisciplines. You've got different areas that teachers specialise in. So I've
Mm-hmm.
focused on product design. I've focused on engineering and also
Yes.
the graphics as well. It really does depend what the flavour of the month is, is with the school. What the schools can be like, can you teach this? If you can't teach it, they'll try and put you there anyway. So, but I've fought fiercely to just try and sort of stay within my remit. It has been a sort of a journey,
Journey.
a
Mm-hmm.
journey, understanding the importance of emotional intelligence with our young people, fostering the students' resilience, all these things, and creating all that sort of that inclusive learning environment, which
Yeah.
they so desperately need. And then each year I learn as much from my young people as they do from me. And, you know, I've just consistently been growing both professionally and as well as personally. Yeah, because you're not the finished article in a way, you know, as a teacher, because you're meeting so many different students every year. You meet different students, different characters, you know. You sort of comes with experience, and you know, you meet characters, you think, okay, I know this character, and you may have strategies in which you might use for them, you know, in order to, you know, help empower them and educate them. But no student is ever the same, and so you're constantly having to sort of reevaluate and see what's best for that student's needs.
Excellent, thanks. And Denise, I'm sure you can relate to something Eunice said earlier about sometimes having to change, or you turn up and you're asked to teach something else, maybe within the humanities, but not what you're accustomed to. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that as well, so that people see that teachers are adaptable? Go for it, Denise.
So I would describe myself as being an all-round humanities teacher with a
Yeah.
focus on geography, which is the love of my life. But when I started here in England, I started with geography, and then I moved schools, and I was asked to teach religious education, which I've never taught before. And I remember having to sit in my friend Miriam's classroom doing pair observations with my book, taking notes about teaching RE, which I knew nothing about. And then I went on to be a master of this subject for over 10 years. So then I taught history, I've taught psychology, I've taught sociology. So I've done the full round because we're very versatile and we are adaptable. And that's just how we are. So that is not an issue at all. Yes.
Exactly. And so we're already debunking some of the myths, right? That teachers can only focus on one thing, or because we can't do it, we teach it. No, no, no. We're a very resilient breed of people, and we will take on all the challenges and just make gold out of nothing. That's what we do. So my second question, and Eunice, I'm going to start with you. Can you share a story that defines your teaching experience? And I know there will be too many to choose from, Eunice, but one that really sticks with you.
This is a story that you know, to this day it really tears me up. It really does. So it was, you know, sort of some time back. This is sort of early in my career, where there was a young man who, one of our students who, was consistently like disruptive. You know, I just didn't understand what the problem is. As I said, it was early years of my career. It was sort of, you know, probably about sort of the first, second year, if you like. And this student just would not sit. I actually thought the poor child was the devil who'd been sent to destroy me, because I just could not keep this young man in his seat. He, you know, trying to teach, trying to deliver a lesson. He's up and he's about. I just didn't understand what the problem was. So obviously, you know, you enforce the policies, you know, you keep them behind, you know, after school. And one day I kept him behind, and I was going to, you know, essentially he was going to do the work that he'd missed during the lesson, you know. And it was then that I discovered, so I was sat with him, you know, sort of because sort of one-to-one. And I sat with him and I gave him some text to read, you know, in order to answer this question. So it's a sort of product analysis task, if you like. And to, I couldn't believe it. He could barely string sort of 2-3 words together. He was really struggling to read the text. I'm talking about a young man who was in year 10. And I said to him, you know, because you're struggling with the text, you know, what's happening here? And it was then he just went silent. He didn't know what to say to me. Obviously, I knew what had been, you know, he wasn't even on the SEN register, you know, as maybe dyslexic or anything like that. There was just no information about him. So obviously I think it was then that I realised that, you know, it's because he struggles, that's where the disruption's coming from, because he can't obviously access the lesson properly and all of these things, you know. And from then basically what happened was every evening I would spend time with him. I would spend time with him, read with him, You know, and I think even at that time, because we're the area that I lived, he, you know, so he lived in the same area. So obviously with the permission of the parent, I'd actually
Mhm.
drop him home, obviously, you know, following the policies and everything else. And I spent quite a bit of time with this young man, just really just trying to help him. I had spoken to the SEND department. They said, well, he doesn't have a statement. There's not much we could do about it. But I think what I was appalled by was the fact that this young man had gone from year 7 right
Yeah.
up to year 10, and nobody had picked up that this young man couldn't read. So surely he must have been in assessments in English, you know, and, you know, wherever
Mhm.
that might have been. Anyway, so, you know, it's obviously time. So to cut a very long story short, he had obviously gone through the GCSEs. For my subject in particular, this young man scraped a C at that time, because
Oh,
at that time
good.
it was the A, B, and C
Yeah.
grading, and he scraped a C. You know, and you know, you know, even then I thought, that's not even the end of the story. I thought that's it. He's, you know, he's gone off. He's done really well. We clapped for him. You know, he done, you know, but he had picked up that time that I'd spent with him. I think it must have been some years later. I was walking through a shopping centre down in Woolwich somewhere, and I just felt a little tap on my shoulder. So I turned
Mhm.
around, and there was this tall young man just standing there. I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh!" You know, I shouted his name. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, well, and the first thing I said to him was like, "What are you doing? What's happening? Where are you?" You know, that kind of thing. And he just had this massive smile on his face, and he said, "Miss, I'm in my final year at university studying engineering." I was like, well, I nearly literally, as I'm telling you this now, my like, there's just tears to my eyes, because
Mhm.
if you were sort of to be where, you know, from where I was standing and what I
Mhm.
saw with this young man, and the fact that it almost was like there was no prospect for him, because
Yeah.
he was being held behind by the fact that his reading was difficult. And it was, again, just getting him, just by helping him, showing him that, you know, getting him to read a lot more often. Like, it was just, the transformation was just amazing. And to just see that, gosh, this is what he's gone on to do in his final year at university, like that, and I just felt, gosh, what would have happened? I don't even dare to think what might have happened had he not encountered me, and had I not encountered him, you
Amazing.
know, and to support him in that way. So that's a story that's always stuck with me. Every time I talk about it, I get a bit teary, because it was a sad situation, but it turned out to be a really great one as well, in terms of how it turned out.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Eunice. Very amazing and fantastic story, to be honest. And teachers all over the world, that's what we do, right? We inspire and we recognize the talents in our young people, and we often don't give up. Now, somebody online sent a message, and I think it's Raz. Uh, I think that's just a username. And Raz noted that it happens quite frequently, especially when the young people are disruptive. And I agree with that. It's a mask, it's often a cover up of what's really happening behind the scenes. The person also went on to say, fantastic work. You inspired him to be more than what everyone saw in him. And it just takes that one teacher to recognize a particular student who's struggling, who others perhaps have written off, and just to make a difference in that student's life. And in the end, it makes us feel really rewarded and fulfilled as well. So thanks for sharing, Eunice. Denise, same question to you. Share a moment that defines your teaching experience, one that sticks with you, because we've been in the classroom for a long time. There are many stories, but the one that still stands out for you.
Right. So, as you say, there have been so many over the years, but I'm going to choose one of the most recent ones, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And this concerns a recent student of mine. This is a post 16 student, so year 13.
Mm-hmm.
And with my subject, one of my subjects that I teach, travel and tourism, students have a chance to sit their exams twice. And so this student had their first sit-in and was not as successful as they thought they would have been. And so we had a conversation about it, at which time she opened about her anxiety and how she was finding this quite overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And so the summer series are coming up. This was January at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to scramble about like thinking about who I could see to support her, what I could do in the classroom to support her. Because when the exam is 3 hours long, and when she sees the paper, she has like a little panic attack about not completing the paper and she shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was also targeted distinction for this exam. And so I saw several people. I was running around, seeing them, making appointments for her to go see them. And some of them, fell through and whatnot. Then I had to think about strategies within the classroom to help her to break these barriers. So it was pretty full on, to be honest. And there were several things that I was doing in class, out of class, and so on. And so the exam came and she did her exam, the final exam in the summer series. And she was successful. And she, I remember I came to school and there was this lovely gift on the table for me, personalized and everything. I was like, oh my goodness. This was
Mm-hmm.
even before the results of the exams came out.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very thankful and for the support that I had given her. At the time was really, really short, really tight to turn around. So I had to put in a lot of work and so on. And in the end, in the summer, she achieved a distinction grade. And again,
Fantastic.
there was another email when I went back to work about, Miss, I'm so thankful. And she got into the university of her choice, etc. So that was the most recent one. There are others, of course, but that one was quite recent. Yes.
Thanks for sharing that, Denise. And the point we're making tonight is that teaching is multifaceted, and what we do is not just stand in front of a whole class, deliver, and walk away. We think about our students as individuals, and we address their needs accordingly, and that's what we do. And that is why we then get these amazing outcomes. And it's just a joy for us to see our students excel, especially those who really struggle, and they struggle to meet their targets. They struggle to even exceed their targets sometimes, but somehow we manage to get them to do that. And that is why teaching is one of the best professions ever, in my opinion. So let me just pause before I pose the other questions and say welcome to everyone who's joined us. Those of you who are online, those of you who have been sending me your messages and liking the show, thank you so much. And whether you're listening from the UK, from the UAE, from the rest of Europe, wherever you are, welcome. And thank you so much. Mel, I know you're online. Welcome, my dear sis, and thanks for joining. So, Denise, I'm going to start with you again for this next question. Now, listeners, we are going behind the scenes. What's one aspect of teaching that most people don't realize happens behind the scenes? And there are so many things, but tell me something that people really don't know about us.
Right. There's so many things, to be honest, because teaching is not just for academic support. It is so much, much more than that. For example, it's about the health and well-being of the students you're interfacing with every single day. So whether they're in the classroom in front of you, whether you're on duty in the playground, whether you're seeing them in the corridors, yes, it's always about their health and well-being. So not just their physical well-being, their mental well-being as well. It's about inspiring them to be better people, to be global citizens. It's about building their confidence, helping their self-esteem, helping them to be resilient human beings and taking risks. All of these kinds of things to create a wholesome individual when they go out into the wide world,
And as the teacher, you play that integral role, don't you? You're right there
Right.
in the middle of it, balancing all these different emotions.
Exactly. Another key aspect of teaching that people don't really realize is that sometimes the teacher might be the only person, and it's a bit mind-boggling for some people to understand. The teacher might be the only person to have a conversation with that young person that day, believe it or not. Like, good morning, how are you? How are you feeling today? The teacher that they meet in tutor time in the morning is the first person, adults of the day, to have a conversation with them, you know? And being a person of faith, for me, is super important because I take that into my classroom every single day. Without it, I would be quarter of the teacher I am today. You know, and again, people who are not religious might not understand this, but so for example, I pray for my young people the minute I go to work. I pray in my car before I leave my car. When I go into my classroom, I pray for my exam classes. I pray for the troubled ones, for example. You know, I ask God to help me to guide them in a way so that they will understand the curriculum, so that their behavior will not negatively impact their learning. All these kinds of things that nobody would think about. So for me, that is one of the most integral parts of how I carry out my job day to day.
Thank you. And we're not suggesting that everybody ought to pray. That is
Of
just
course not.
Denise's way
Never. No.
of doing
Not
it.
at all.
Neither,
Not at all.
yes, neither are we
No.
imposing
No.
such beliefs, but that's Denise's approach behind the
Yeah.
scenes. Okay. So Eunice, over to you as well. What's one aspect of teaching that most people don't realize happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, very, very interesting question. For me, I think it's many people don't realize this extent of the planning. Like, you know, I know that Denise has mentioned emotional aspects of, you know, our young people, the needs, but for us, the emotional labour that actually goes into teaching, you know, beyond these lessons, us teachers spend hours adapting materials to different learning styles. I talked about this earlier on, you know, managing classroom dynamics. Oh gosh, have we seen many arguments, fights, and things like that? And there are some days you're actually switched off, and you because you've got your own personal stuff going on, so you always have to wear this resilient, you know, cap on. You have to be strong. You're being strong for another 30 odd kids. I mean, you know, you might see about maybe 60, 90 kids in one day, you know, and
Or more.
or even more,
Over
depends.
100,
Yeah, over
yeah.
100, yeah. You know, and just the hours that go in there, all these classroom dynamics, responding to all these unique emotional needs of our young people. It's not just, like Denise said, it's not just about delivering the content, but it's about creating that safe, engaging and supportive learning environment. And I think the word I'm just looking for right now is it's relentless. It is really relentless. And, you know, teaching is not like how it used to be before when I first started. Even then it was, you know, but there's just so much that actually goes into being, you know, a teacher. Like I said, that it, you know, you're trying to be emotional support for, you know, 100 and odd students. You know, obviously not every single one of them, but you know, you get a few. I mean, I can tell you, each day I will deal with a student who has their own emotional needs. And I think Denise mentioned that, you know, sometimes you're the only person, you're the tutor that's probably said good morning to them, or normally I say to them, I mean, you know, I don't go as far as praying. I pray for myself because I feel that I need prayer in order to go into school and be able to deal with them, you know. So, but I do tell them that, you know, when they come to school, you know, I'm their second parent. Us teachers are their second parents. We are the next people that they will spend their day with. And when they go home, then they go and see their parents or whoever they, you know, that looks after them. But essentially, we are their next next family, if you like. So we are essentially taking up that role, not just as educators, but behind those scenes, we are actually parents as well to these young people, because I find myself having conversations that I would normally tell my own boys. My boys are in their teenage years, and, I would, after every conversation that I have, particularly my sixth formers, I would tell them, I'm telling you something that I would tell my own boys. I'm
Yeah.
telling you something that your mother or your father, whoever looks after you, will tell you. So you need to take this on board. So it's that kind of language. We are taking on that role as parents to our young people, not just the delivery of the subjects or whatever it is that we're teaching.
Thank you so much. And that's what makes our role so multifaceted. We're counselors, we're mediators, and sometimes we provide for them as well. Sometimes we provide resources. Sometimes we provide the lunch, the school dinners. So yeah, very multifaceted role we have as teachers, and just some of the things that the general public might not even be aware of, and that we have to put our own personal needs aside. And no wonder students do not think we have a life outside of school, because we're so consumed by everything else around us within the education system, within the school, the demands of the school. So sometimes students just think we belong to them and solely to them. When they see you outside of school, they're in shock. They're, oh, miss, you're in the mall. What are you doing? So very interesting there. And I think we've got a point coming through from Molly, who said, I feel like teachers are not just teachers. Their role starts from the time they step on the school grounds. And you are so right. From the moment we enter, our roles begin. And this is before we even stand in front of a class to deliver a lesson, because there is always a need. As a form tutor as well, you go in there and you're taking care of the pastoral issues. You're making sure that there are no signs of neglect. You're making sure that there are no signs of abuse. And if there are, then you take the next steps. So the role of the teacher goes beyond. And I said chalkboard, which is rather ancient, but I just like that kind of retro feel to saying chalkboard. Thank you so much, ladies. That's been a brilliant section so far. And so before we take another break, have you faced any unexpected challenges as a teacher that you feel aren't talked about enough? And I'm coming back to you for this one, Eunice. Any unexpected challenges that you feel that people don't really talk about it?
Within our teaching, with our profession.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few, and I think I think what I'm gonna touch on. There are, we're talking about, obviously, challenges here, obviously there's quite a lot of it. We're talking about the workload, the emotional toll that teaching can actually take upon, us supporting students who are also dealing with personal struggles, and, and again, I think I mentioned that earlier, that we're expected to be strong as well for our young people. And, and these are issues that sometimes are beyond our control, that, they stem from the home, and it can weigh heavily on a teacher. I remember early on in my career, again, there was a young girl who was in foster care, and somebody walked in and said to me that I needed to give her a message, and said, would you let this student know that she's not to go to her foster mother's home, she's got to go to this other home. And I just stood there, like, I said, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean she's got to go to another? I just didn't get it. Like, what does that mean? How does a child goes to school, goes home, and, has, raids the fridge, and, goes on their phone and, does whatever. Why has this young girl had so, obviously I'd sort of spoken to, the people that obviously, the safeguarding lot, and to try and get a little bit more understanding. And it just broke my heart that, obviously this young girl was in care, she's going from foster home to foster home. Sometimes she'll come to school and not know if she's going to go back to that foster home. Do I was so, the emotional toll that took on me, that I literally wanted to adopt this girl. That's how bad That's how much of a toll it took on me, in the sense that, look, I just felt like, gosh, I want to try and help, but you can't, it's difficult. You can't get involved like that, so we often have to balance being a mentor, a counselor, a teacher, which is rewarding, of course, but gosh, it's incredibly challenging. And the emotional energy that's required, obviously, to sustain it and sort of, balance all of this is something that's not frequently discussed. And, I think I read somewhere that, it's okay actually to call in, to work and, to school and say, look, I'm having a mental health day, because that happens to us sometimes, and not just that. I think that's just one element that I've mentioned. We've talked about the students, but we've also got some of the teaching staff as well. They've got their truckload of issues that they often impose on us, because we can't control how people behave, but we are also expected to control how we behave. But sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, I think once upon a time the staff room was where everyone would go off and that was the sounding board, wasn't it? But now, like, literally, you don't have a sounding board. You don't have anywhere where and it would be in the staff room talking about the student, Harry down the, in the other classroom who's just literally ruined your lesson. That's what you'd be talking about. And then you'd have Mr. Whoever saying to you, oh, don't worry about Harry. I know what he's like, and we say all these different, and we're there, we lean on each other, and we're a community. But, sometimes, there are issues within teaching, amongst teachers themselves, and often it's I hate to use that word, but it's like a dog eat dog, and everyone's trying to save their own bacon and will throw anybody else under the bus, and and often sometimes the people that actually get affected by this is the very young people that we're serving, because what then happens is then we often, instead of actually feeling comfortable to talk about it, what we then do, we leave, we go to another school, we just want to get away from there and go somewhere else. But the people that this really impacts is our young people, because then they don't have that consistency. So I think that's not talked about enough yet.
Yes. And Eunice, I could hear the passion there, and I can tell that means a lot to you.
Yes.
That means a lot to you. Thank you so much. And so before I pose the same question to you, Denise, I just want to pick up on a few things that Eunice said. And she mentioned the fact that the staff room isn't the same anymore. And I'm finding more and more that staff rooms are becoming non-existent, where departments are now siloed and you're in your own areas, in your own department, each department having a base. And so that communal feel is slowly being removed from the staff room. And you're so right, Eunice, the staff room is a place of support. It's a place where you can rant and well, hopefully a safe space. So it's so important that as teachers, we do get the chance to kind of vent as well and have our own catharsis, because we take on so much. So Denise, before we go for a break, could you share with us as well any unexpected challenge as a teacher that's not talked about enough?
So like Eunice says, like you said, and several people who are online who are listening, one of the highest, I think, biggest challenges has to do with mental health, actually.
Yes.
Because teachers suffer greatly from mental health illnesses as a result of teaching, because it is really, really difficult. And it depends, again, on the school where you are. It depends on your colleagues, your line managers, your head teacher, and what the relationship is like within the school, for example. I think I read somewhere where when teachers retire, their mortality rate life expectancy is quite low, because they come out of such stressful situations, But mental health is a huge factor, especially where teaching now is so data driven, and so teachers are working towards these targets and they're under intense pressure for achieving these targets. And if they don't achieve the targets, the judgmental effects of that, you think about the school inspections on the Ofsteds, where sadly we had a primary head teacher taking her own life because of the judgment that was given on her school. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of these things really affect teachers' mental health. The pressure from your line managers who have their own agendas,
Mm-hmm.
they set themselves targets and then expect the teachers to perform so that they can achieve those targets. In some schools, for example, there are no open door policy where if a teacher is going through situations, they can't just go in freely and have a conversation with someone about
Mm-hmm.
it and get the help that they might need. And so this again will impact their mental health. And so you find teachers now more than ever getting signed off from work
Mm-hmm.
because it is really rather difficult to handle. And as Eunice says, at the end of the day, it is impacting the young people that we're dealing with. They're depending
Yeah.
on us for their education. But at the end of the day, we are human as well. And so we have to take care of ourselves as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we're not healthy, then it's, it's you know,
We
it's,
can't deliver.
we can't deliver. And that's
We
just
can't
and
deliver.
that's what it is.
Thank you
Another
so
big
much. Mm-hmm.
another big challenge that we
Mm-hmm.
had to deal with was the impact of COVID-19 on the education system. And
Yes.
so when these young people returned to the classroom, that was one of the biggest challenges in terms of literacy, in terms of their oracy, in terms of, you know,
Behavior.
behavior, in terms of resilience. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
gone, and this country is known for being resilient and this kind of a thing. And so that has been a significant challenge in itself that we're barely just getting over. And again, if you're in the southeast, it depends on what region you're in, that you'd have had a much more successful return after COVID rather than in other areas where you know, there's so many challenges in teaching. Yeah, you talk about the financial cutbacks. There's so many
Mhm.
things.
Yeah, we'd need another show for that. But thank you so much, Denise and Eunice. Very clearly explained, and thanks for making sure the passion comes through, because that's how we feel. Because if, as both ladies are saying, if we're not 100%, we can't give of ourselves, and it's so important that as teachers, our mental health is also taken care of. We're going to take a short break. Believe it or not, we're almost towards the last hurdle of this show. I probably shouldn't use that metaphor of a hurdle because it's not been difficult. It's been great. And so we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we will hear some more from our guests. Those of you who are just joining, welcome and thank you so much. Do stay tuned.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development program, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Future Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurecareers.com and subscribe today. Future Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for BetUK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone. If I were in the UK, I would definitely be attending that show. I have developed an avid interest in EdTech. And so definitely, so if you're around and you're able to, I think as educators, you should make that effort. Welcome back, ladies, and thanks again for inspiring us tonight and for being so honest and so open and sharing the vulnerabilities of being a teacher. I'm going to skip some of the questions, ladies, because you've already answered them, because you've talked about the emotional toll that teaching can take on us. And so I'm going to skip to the other question and ask, I'm coming to you first, Denise. What do you do to unwind? Because we all agree that, yes, emotionally, teaching can be very demanding and physically as well. So how do you unwind as a teacher?
You know, due to health constraints for me, I am now part-time. I work 4 days a week. And so on my day off, I do absolutely no schoolwork.
Good.
Nothing at all. I refuse at this stage of my teaching career, I hardly ever bring work home. All prep I do at work. And
Good.
so, however, I do appreciate that that's not easy for everyone, especially if there are childcare issues, for example. You know, colleagues have to leave straight after work to collect their younger ones. And so sometimes we're forced to work at home. But I feel like teachers need to make a concentrated effort to make time for themselves because their personal well-being is super important. And so I read, as Michelle knows, I read and I read a lot. So I'll go through and I read rom-com. So it's mindless, It's not taxing my brain too much. And yeah.
And you
I
go for
read-
walks, Denise?
Oh my goodness. I am now an avid netball player. Of course, Jamaicans are known for the Sunshine Girls netball team. And so I play netball now with my friend Rachel. And I also go for country walks along country trails. And normally we go for like 2 hours. We go foraging in the summer. So this summer has been really fun, actually. And incidentally, at our faculty meeting today, I proposed to be the well-being ambassador because as a Jamaican, we tend to bring sunshine into the lives of people we interface with everywhere. And so, yes, we will be starting Feel Good Thursdays to support our colleagues' well-being,
Excellent, Denise.
so-
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And somebody messaged on the chat saying vitamin D. Yes, as much as you possibly can in the UK, that is. And when you can get the vitamin D in the UK, soak it all up. For me, I'm exposed to it 24/7. And honestly, sometimes I miss the liquid sunshine. But let me pause again to welcome some other guests who've joined us during the show. Thank you so much. My lovely son is now online. Thank you for joining us, Pierre. Please stay put and send us a message if you wish and tell us your perspectives of teachers. And to be honest, you lived with one all your life, so you know the hard work behind the scenes. Eunice, how do you unwind?
Oh gosh, this is a very interesting one. But do you know what? I've got better with this over time. I mean, striking a balance really does require deliberate boundaries and
Yes.
that self-care. And as I said, with all the, if you're not careful with all the pressures and all of that, coming from other members of staff, Denise, you mentioned earlier on, like senior leaders, want the demands is just so high that if you're not careful, I think sometimes I've just learned that, look, you just need to know when to say no. And say, you know what, I'm actually going to spend time doing what I want to do. So I've learned to prioritize time for myself and for my family, whilst obviously trying to maintain and remain fully present for my students, yes. But I'm also a person and I've got a family by God's grace. And that's really important to me. I mean, when my boys were growing up, I was sort of, trying to balance my career as a teacher whilst trying to be a mum and just making sure that I was there for them and not missing, that important part of their growing up. But now they're all grown by God's grace. I make a deliberate effort now to really sort of make time for myself. I mean, just more recently, I have sort of taken up exercise because I found that, my drawer was just full of biscuits, things that I shouldn't really be eating. And because I'm not taking time, I think I worked in one school, and the one thing that really, it was just my pet peeve, I just didn't like it, that teachers were actually doing duty, literally holding their dinner. They're standing there eating their lunches, should I say, while students are walking past, they're literally, because we always had to do lunchtime duty. Every member of staff had to do lunchtime duty. And I just thought, hang on a moment, but eating is for sitting down. You're supposed to sit and eat your food and enjoy your food. Why do I have to be standing there, students walking past, coughing over the food and whatever, do whatever? And I have the right to really sit down and really enjoy my food, sit at the table and eat my food. So it's these little things that I've just learned now to prioritize time for myself, making sure that obviously my family and everything, I make time as soon as I finish work. Look, it can wait till tomorrow. Like Denise, I don't bring work home now. I try and use my free time. I just try and manage that time really well and do all my marking if I've got any marking to do, or my lesson plans. I might also do, sometimes, yes, I will ring fence some time, of course, to do, sort of my lesson plans and things like that. But most certainly, I just use the time now, especially to talk to my colleagues as well. Like I said, I'm one of these teachers. I need a sounding board because otherwise, literally, I will be, I wouldn't be able to handle sort of some of the things that often, the challenges that's often, I'm faced with. So I do use my colleagues. I speak to my colleagues, I just practice mindfulness, setting aside that time just to recharge, especially on the weekend, and focusing on my personal passions and things like that. I've got a little side hustle going on as well, so I just, I do time for me. I do me, because I deserve it, get the nails done, the hair done, all of that.
Absolutely, Eunice. Absolutely. And Melly is agreeing with everything that you've all said so far. She said, I believe drawing a line between work and family is very important. So, and as you said, Eunice, deliberate boundaries. And as Denise said, switching off. And I must confess, I'm working on that myself. I just need to know when to switch off and just make a conscious effort. And I don't necessarily bring work home, like marking. I've made a decision that happens at school when I've got a chance to do it. And I just manage my time like that at school. But I do find I come home and, I'm still probably looking over some lessons or just doing other things. But my downtime is to learn, and that's what I do. And so I will come and I will research and I will do all sorts. And that is my downtime. And then I will go to a concert or a show here or there and so on. and just to unwind. I also love attending conferences and these teacher events. That's also for me my way of, well, unwinding. And I think I probably need to find other things that have nothing to do with education, as Denise said, just downtime and just shut off completely. And yeah, I do watch some brain dead television programs when I feel like it. And yeah, so I think it's so important that we make a conscious effort, as you both said, to really take time out to recharge the batteries and come again, and be able to give our students the best of us. Somebody just messaged as well, it's Raxi, I think, to say for recently qualified teachers, especially those that immigrated. Oh, it's a question, ladies. Do you have any advice or best practices for those just starting out? Now, I'm assuming this means in terms of balancing, work life balance. I assume that's what you mean. So, either of you ladies, so Raz X is asking, what advice would you give to newly qualified teachers and those who've just moved to the UK to create a work life balance? Because as we know, it is not easy starting in a new country, new education system to find that balance. What's your advice? 1 minute.
Okay, I'll go first. I think one of the things, if I could do all of this, if I know now what if I, sort of back when I started teaching, what I know now is that, you've got to really just make sure that you have, you ring fence some time. If that is to do something that you actually enjoy, ring fence that time. That might be on a Saturday, it might be on a Friday after work, or something. You start off bit by bit, not all perhaps maybe in one go, but you're being conscious of the fact that you need to ring fence some time for you, because that is crucial to your well-being. It's crucial for your functioning. It's crucial for all these things. So don't give up. What I would say, don't give up what you love doing, because sometimes teaching, I'm really sorry to say, it is a thankless job sometimes. Especially the people that might work with. The students are very grateful, don't get me wrong, but you need to, if you're not okay, our young people won't be okay. You're not good to anybody. So I think what I would advise you to do is that if there's something, you're getting to know the education, as Michelle just said, so once you've found your feet, even whilst you're finding your feet, it's okay to say, you know what, on a Tuesday evening, I'm going aqua aerobics, or I'm going to go and spend time with my friends. That's non-negotiable. It's got to be a non-negotiable act. You've got to make sure you stick to it, because as time goes on, and it does get, once it gets easy, it gets you become a little bit more clever in managing your time, and then you can start to incorporate other activities as well, for your well-being. It could just even going to have your nails done. It could just be going to have your hair done. It could just be going to go and get your eyelashes done, whatever that might be. It's just that thing that will make you feel good and make you feel great about yourself. And that can make a huge difference. But step by step, bit by bit, just value that time that you bring things in that time, and making sure you stick to it.
Thank you so much. Denise, in 1 minute, what advice would you give to a newly qualified teacher or a teacher who's moved recently to the UK? How do they balance their time?
So I would say, because teaching these days is actually quite challenging from even when we started out. And so you need to, number one, learn to work smart. And you do this by modeling maybe older colleagues, for example. So work smart to save time. Do not feel like you have to take every single thing on, Ask for help if you need help.
Yes.
Because it's one thing about teaching, you can't be prideful in teaching. You will suffer, right? So ask for help. Do collaborative planning, for example, to save yourself time. Things like this. And of course, like Eunice says, make time for yourself. Make time to have some downtime for you, to regroup, to re-energize yourself. Yeah.
So important. Thank
Mhm.
you so much, ladies. And that was a very good question. Because we're veterans, we're just talking from our perspective, but there are teachers who really struggle to create that balance. And especially if you really want to impress and you really want to be seen as, a certain professional and to be perceived a certain way, you struggle to find that balance. And we've been there. Um, I'm going to ask one question about classroom dynamics. So we stepped outside the classroom for a little bit. We're going to go back into the classroom, and I'm going to ask both ladies just to share really briefly, and then we'll take a break for the news. And so the question I'm going to ask is, how do you manage diverse personalities in the classroom while ensuring everyone stays engaged and included? And I'm coming back to you, Denise. We know that we're dealing with kids with all sorts of different personality traits, with various needs, neurodivergent needs. How do you then ensure they stay engaged?
So one of the most, I think, fundamental thing about teaching is that you have to build relationships with the young people you're interfacing with every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to get to know them, even the quote unquote naughty ones, the disruptive ones.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to know them. And and that is not that hard to do. You ask them something simple, how their day went, what they did on the weekend, find out about their interests, for example. So if you know they like a particular sport or they like to cook, engage them in that conversation, and you win them over gradually. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is one of the things that will help you actually in terms of your classroom management, for example. Use humor. Don't be afraid to laugh with your students,
Or laugh at yourself.
laugh at yourself, literally. And also, as adults, we shy away from apologizing to
Mm-hmm.
young people. Do not be afraid to apologize. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I am sorry. I got that wrong. For example, show your human side, you know, and
Yeah.
try to, when you're dealing with a challenging situation in the classroom, never ever back your young people into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Always give them an opportunity to get out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And some students have big personalities, for example. You can allocate them a role, give them a kind of responsibility, use them to help you in the classroom, that kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
teachers need to choose their battles. This is
Mm-hmm.
one thing, even for the younger people, younger colleagues who are just starting out. You need to choose your battles in the classroom. You can't win everything. And sometimes you choose a small thing and it blows up into a monumental situation
Mm-hmm.
that, you could have
Could have been
diffused,
avoided. Yeah.
could have been avoided. And it's one thing young people are good at, especially our younger colleagues. Teaching is like dealing with our young people. What back when we just started out, we heard that when you go fishing and you throw out the bait and the
Mm-hmm.
and the bait catches a fish and then you start to reel in the fish. This is how our young people treat us. Yes. So they throw the bait and it's up to you if you bite, and they will
Mm-hmm.
and they will reel you in, and then it's lost, it's gone, literally. So you need to choose, and it's dead easy to reverse these situations. Well, it's not dead easy. It comes with experience, to be honest. And
Yeah.
so, yes, this is what I'll
I
say.
agree. Thank you so much, Denise. Fantastic advice. Choose your battles, say sorry, and use humor without belittling our young people. We're going to stop for the news, and believe it or not, we're about to enter the last 15 minutes of the show. I think we might need a part two. And when we come back, Eunice, you could shed some light on that particular question. When we come back, we are going to have some personal reflections, and that will take us to the end of the show. Do stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. We are going to hear from Joe Fox with the news.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the programme with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for BetUK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The government has published its call for evidence for its wide-ranging curriculum review. In a feature by Schools Week, details of the process are given. The consultation will last for 8 weeks, until November the 22nd. According to the Department for Education, questions are going to be as open as possible, and they welcome responses from all interested parties, including young people and parents. An interim report is scheduled to be published in early 2025, with a final report and recommendations in autumn 2025. The chair of the review said straightforward changes could happen quickly, although government has committed to giving schools a year's notice for major curriculum and assessment reforms. The review also makes clear positives but states there are parts of the system that require improvement, particularly SEND and those pupils from poorer backgrounds. Some potential outcomes are also listed, which could include ways to alleviate some of the pressure and constraints on learners and educators, reduce the assessment burden and consider well-being, and making sure the curriculum is inclusive and accessible for all. The review may also offer commentary on the impact of accountability measures. The chair of the review, Professor Becky Francis, also told Schools Week that the biggest challenge for the review was to ensure its reforms did no harm or have unintended consequences. Alongside the call for evidence, the government has also published a study of curriculum subject trends over time. to aid our evidence-led conversation, they said. Some of the data shows significantly higher numbers of students taking Maths A-level, art continuing to thrive at GCSE, but design and technology subjects faring worst over time. Further details of the statistics can be found on the Schools Week website. The Metro News website covers a story about a state secondary school which has made it into the final 3 for the World's Best School Prize for supporting healthy lives. The award was founded by the T4 Education and celebrates schools around the world that really understand their role in fostering healthy habits, behaviours, knowledge and skills. The Hindu faith school is for pupils aged 11 to 19, and whilst their ethos is drawn from the Vaishnavist tradition of the faith, they are fully inclusive. Anyone who wants to apply to the school is able to. As well as following a traditional curriculum, the free school also teaches extra subjects like yoga, philosophy, ethics and Sanskrit. Their website says, "We put an equal emphasis on the highest academic achievement alongside the development of character and spiritual insight." The 2 other schools in the final are based in Italy and Singapore. The BBC Wales website reports that teachers could be asked to swear an oath against inappropriate relationships with pupils. A motion due to be considered by Flintshire Council could see teachers and school staff pledge in front of a manager not to form intimate relationships with students. It follows the court case of a former head teacher jailed for 17 years after being found guilty of sexual abuse. Education Union NASUWT said introducing an oath would show shocking contempt for teachers and would only bring the teaching profession into disrepute. ASCL has said it would be willing to discuss the proposal. The BBC National News website reports on new guidance for disabled students. The Equality and Human Rights Commission has published new guidance setting out what universities must do to comply with laws. Universities must proactively support disabled students rather than wait for them to ask for help. It follows the death of Bristol University student Natasha Abrahart, whose parents contributed to the new guidance. Universities must now actively seek out and adopt best practice and show real commitment to understanding and meeting diverse needs. Finally, Schools Week reports that some pupils with additional needs will be able to listen to white noise or music during their exams this year. Schools will also be able to use mental health support service referral letters to apply for extra support to ensure young people aren't disadvantaged by long waiting lists. The changes are included in the updated JCQ guidance on adjustments schools can request. SENCOs can now apply for pupils who are classed as having a substantial impairment to listen to music or white noise. This would apply to those with social, emotional and mental health needs or with a sensory impairment such as tinnitus. These adjustments apply to GCSE, A-level, BTEC and T-level qualifications. Schools must make sure devices playing the music or white noise cannot be connected to the internet and the playlist must be checked. The change meaning schools can use a referral to CAMS or NHS trusts has also been welcomed as waiting lists for specialist services are growing. Full details of all the changes can be found on the JCQ website. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
Fantastic. Welcome back, everybody. So much to unpick there if we had the time. And that's what I love about the news on Teachers Talk Radio, because it is varied, a mixture of the good, bad, and the ugly, but lots to think about there as well. We're now in the final few minutes of our show, and I think it's time for personal reflections. And so I'm going to come back to you now, Eunice, and let me pause to welcome everybody again. Thank you for sticking with us, for remaining online wherever you've joined from. It has been a pleasure to have you online. And I hope you found some insightful information tonight and learned a little bit more about what happens behind the scenes of teaching. To my guests as well, thank you so much. So we're now going to round up with our reflections. And Eunice, I'm going to start with you. What do you hope your students remember about you after they've left your classroom?
Oh gosh. Well, I hope they don't remember that I'm all shouting at them, and they remember something really positive. I hope that they remember me as somebody who truly cared about their growth and well-being, not just as learners, but as individuals. And, I always hope that they leave with that sense of confidence in their ability, because that's what we work on, isn't it? That's what we teach them, getting them to understand their abilities, because it's there. But, as teachers, as educators, that's what we do. We bring the best out in them, and obviously it's a partnership, of course. And so them knowing that they can overcome challenges is also something. Obviously we teach and we help our young people with, and that education is actually not. It just doesn't stop when they leave school, but it's actually a lifelong journey.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So you want them to remember you for the confidence that you've instilled in them and that self-belief.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Denise, over to you. But before you answer that question and give us your reflection, I've got a question online. So I'm going to give you a minute to answer that and another minute to share your reflection. And the question is, how would you deal with a class clown?
I saw that question actually, and I thought it's similar to what I said earlier. It's about like how you deal with diverse personalities in your classroom. So if you continue to tell off the students, for example, you could end up creating a hole for yourself because they're going to play up against that and they're going to act up for the better, possibly. Not, necessarily, possibly. You could also, like I said earlier, begin to give them roles to do. Use those kind of students to aid you. Give them something to do. Give them some responsibility. Because sometimes, to be honest, they're acting up because they're trying to get your attention for whatever reason sometimes. And so, when they do something good, give them some praise, for example. So it just depends on the relationship you have with the student, because you can win them over. That's what I would say. Yes.
Thank you so much. And then, if you could share with us, how would you like to be remembered by your students?
Well, to be honest, I think I'll probably be known as a very strict but fair teacher who have high expectations of her students and who always wants them to do well and will support them 150% in order for them to achieve and do well.
Excellent. And in so doing, sometimes resort to the Jamaican vernacular to get the message across,
Yes,
which
of
surprisingly
course.
works, right, Denise?
Most necessarily. And so, which I have had to do at times.
I know.
And surprisingly, you have translators in my class when, when this has happened, and you go
Exactly.
off in some Jamaican
Yeah.
and so you have the
Thank
ones,
you.
you have the puzzle ones. What did Miss just say? And of
And you
course,
have the translators.
they have the translators. Well, you'll find that this is what Miss meant. So,
Thank you so much. And
but of
this,
course, they do appreciate the Jamaican culture so
of
much,
course,
and
of
so
course.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Denise. And this brings us to the end of our show. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for your questions and your comments. Thank you, Denise and Eunice, for taking the time to be with us tonight, for sharing your honest opinions, for being so open and so real with us. I hope that we have shed some light on the real demands of being a teacher today. We're not seeking your sympathy, but merely raising awareness of the fact that our holidays are well earned. Thank you, listeners, for joining us and for sharing in tonight's discussion once again. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time for another insightful discussion.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.